Hi, everyone. My name is Campbell Stewart. I'm the school social worker here at Beaverton High School. And I'm excited to be here today with some of my amazing colleagues in some of our neighboring high schools in the Beaverton School District for a really important week. Many of you may think that you can only talk to a mental health professional about feelings of suicide or depression. But today is about a partnership with all of the teachers in your building and helping you to understand that, well, yes, you can talk to your school social worker or your school counselor or school psychologist, but we also want you to know that there's lots of caring and trusted adults in the building that are okay having conversations with you about suicide and helping you to get to the help you need. So I'm going to pass it off to my colleagues to introduce themselves, and we'll take it from there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dina Schreiner, and I'm the social worker at Sunsets High School. Go Apollos! As you may know by now, the district has marked this week to have an intentional district-wide focus on suicide prevention. We know that suicide is impacting the lives of young people more than ever, and now that we're in a CDL environment, that just puts our risk even higher during this time of distance learning.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Wertz. I'm the new social worker at Mountainside. Go Mavs! So the good news is there are caring adults at your school who are here to listen and get you connected to meaningful help and support. Today, we're partnering with your teachers to provide information and have honest discussions about some of the misinformation out there around mental disorders and suicide.
Hi, everyone. I'm Robin Crocker, and I am the school psychologist at the Beaverton High School. We care for all of you, and we hope that you participate in this conversation so we can all learn from each other and help create a more supportive school community. We need your help to fight against the stigma that's out there and around our mental health needs and seeking help. We all need some help at some times in our lives, and no one should suffer alone. Please know that if any of this information stirs up anything for you, or you're worried about your friends or a loved one, your teachers, school counselors, school psychologists, or social workers are on standby to connect with you.
Hi, everyone. Today, we're going to be learning about our mental health, how we can better understand it and our feelings, how to practice good mental health, and how, if we're struggling with our mental health or concerned about a friend or a loved one, we can get the help that we and they deserve. Keep in mind, if anything shared today prompts a feeling that you need to talk to someone, make sure to go to a trusted adult or contact the mental health professional's office here at school by emailing or calling your school counselor, your school social worker, your school psychologist, or any trusted adult. Please feel free to ask questions at any time, but if you want to reach out to me after this lesson, that is fine too. In part one, we're going to talk about good mental health. We can't always control our emotions or how we feel, but as we'll learn today, there are things that people can do to promote good mental health and reduce our stress. Many of the decisions we make every day about what we eat, how much sleep we get at night, how active we are in the ways we manage our lives can make an enormous impact on the way that we feel emotionally. In the first part, we're going to learn that everybody deserves to have good mental health. Mental health is balance. It's the ability to manage stress and achieve one's potential. But we also have to remember that stress is normal and stress can help motivate us. But too much of it can increases the risk for health problems like depression. Small improvements in nutrition, sleep, exercise, and coping skills, things like mindfulness, can help us to better manage our stress and achieve mental health. So we're going to move into some true and false questions to set the stage to learn about our mental health. So your teacher may help right now to have a polling system, or maybe you all can raise your hands to indicate what you believe around some of these questions. So let's move through some of these slides. So, true or false? We all have mental health. True. This is something that is a part of all of us, just like we have our physical health, we all have our mental health as well. True or false? Our physical health is more important than our mental health. False. Why might that be? I think many would say that our physical health is just as important as our mental health. They're both equally important. True or false? If I want to talk about my mental health, I always have to ask a doctor. False. That's part of what this lesson is about, is to help remind all of us that it's sort of everybody's responsibility to help talk about mental health, and that there's lots of trusted, caring adults in your school who you can talk to. True or false? One way to manage our mental health is to talk about it with someone we trust. True. Research has shown that time and time again, people just actually having the opportunity to talk to somebody about how they're feeling can be really beneficial and be the first step in getting the help that they need. So let's talk a little bit more about what is mental health. Mental health is really the health around our feelings, our thinking, our emotions, and our moods. Looking after our mental health is just as important as looking after our physical health. And it's important for a happy, healthy, and productive life. Remember that everybody deserves good mental health. Mental health is balance, the ability to manage stress and achieve one's potential. And like I said before, stress is normal, but too much can increase the risk for physical health problems, as well as mental health problems like depression. But we can make small improvements in our nutrition and our sleep habits, our exercise, and our coping skills that can help us to better manage our stress. Good mental health is something that everyone deserves and something that we all have to work on. What do you think gets in the way of sort of achieving that good mental health? Stress, and particularly for high school students right now. This is a pretty stressful time. Health problems can arise with too much stress. And maybe you've seen that play out with friends or with loved ones in your life. Sort of what are those impacts of too much stress? So again, we keep hitting on these really important areas of nutrition, exercise, sleep, and coping skills. These are areas of practice that can really help to improve your mood. So maybe that is like working on, am I eating healthy foods, or am I eating enough foods? Or sometimes maybe I'm eating too much foods if I'm feeling sad or lonely. I talk to a lot of students who struggle with their sleep habits, right? Maybe they're staying up too late on their phones or watching Netflix or on social media. And that can really impact the way that you feel and your overall mental health. Exercise. Right now we're not in our school buildings. And so how do we find time to get movement? Because we know that that does help us to feel better. And that doesn't mean, going to a gym or having some real rigorous exercise program. It can just mean going for a walk and being outside in nature. And then also developing healthy coping skills. And that looks different for all of us, right? For some of us, maybe that is through movement. For some of us, it's through socialization and connecting with friends or loved ones. Or maybe for you, it's creating something, writing or art or music. Those are all ways that we cope. So like we touched on, for nutrition, eating 3 balanced meals a day. And for many of you, sleep, trying to get around 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. Exercise, recommendations are around at least 2.5 hours per week. And then the coping skills that I mentioned. Doing something that you love, journaling, practicing mindfulness. And if you need ideas on what those things might be, your school counselor or a trusted teacher, they may have some really great tips and tricks on what are some healthy coping skills that you might be able to try. There are some other coping skills that are sort of the more negative ones that generally cause more harm than good. So using harmful substances and engaging in reckless behaviors. So in the spirit of practicing some of these coping skills, we are going to do a brief mindfulness exercise. And for many of you, you've probably tried some of these in some of your classes, or maybe you have a friend who's done them, or maybe you use one of the apps like the Calm app or the Headspace app that really helps to guide you through a mindfulness practice. And I always let students know before we practice any sort of mindfulness that this is something that you do to your own comfort level. Some people like to close their eyes. Some people like to keep them open. It's really about creating a space where we are just trying to focus in on the present moment. We're not worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow or thinking badly about what's happened in the past, just trying to really center ourselves in the present moment. So I'm going to ask you all in your class to just take a moment, and if you're comfortable, to close your eyes and sort of get comfortable in your chair. And then together, I'm going to guide you in just some deep breathing. So we're going to slowly inhale 1 and exhale on 2. Inhale on 3. Exhale on 4. Inhale on 5. Exhale on 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. And while you're continuing to breathe, thinking of just letting go of any tension you're noticing in your body, in your shoulders, in your arms, in your hands, in your legs, and in your feet. And I want you to continue to slowly inhale and exhale to the count of 10. And on your last breath, open your eyes or sort of wiggle around in your chair and just notice how you're feeling. Are you feeling more calm, more quiet? And the practice of mindfulness is to not have any judgment about what that experience was like, but just observing, what am I feeling? So this is something that you can use at any point in your day. We know, and you've probably experienced in your lifetime, somebody telling you when you're stressed or overwhelmed to take a deep breath, right? To just breathe. And so this is a reminder of the power of slowing down and just noticing our breath and how that can recenter us in a stressful time. We're going to take a brief pause and then move into our next section of today's lesson.
Now we're going to move into part 2, and now we're going to begin the conversation about understanding our feelings, learning the difference between everyday feelings and overwhelming feelings, and learning about teen depression. This information may help you identify depression in yourself or in your peers. Depression is a real illness that is both common and serious. It is not something you can just snap out of, and it's certainly not your fault. Like other illnesses, depression requires professional treatment, and most importantly, you can get better and go on to live a healthy, productive life. In this part, we're going to learn the difference between everyday feelings and overwhelming feelings, positive coping strategies, and that depression is common and a serious mood disorder, and that it is treatable. We're going to pause here and start by watching a video about two teens with different experiences with mental health challenges. Now that we've watched the video, let's go into a discussion about how the feelings that Sasha and Andre are experiencing are different. You may have noticed that one was feeling everyday feelings. Those come and go and are a normal reaction to what is happening in our lives. They're always changing and they don't usually hang around too long. And the other was feeling overwhelming feelings. Those hang around for a long time. They change the way we feel, change the way we behave, and they stop us and prevent us from doing things we want to do in life. You have heard people call them a mental health problem, a mental health illness, or a mental disorder. Now let's take a moment and talk about everyday feelings versus overwhelming feelings. Pause the video here and start brainstorming what's the difference, how are they similar, and how are they opposed? Now that you guys brainstormed a list of examples of everyday feelings and overwhelming feelings, let's talk about them. Everyday feelings might include happiness, joy, or disappointment, and examples of overwhelming feelings might be loss, grief, or despair. It is important to note that in mental health, any feelings can be overwhelming feelings if there's an underlying mental health condition. What does Sasha do to manage her everyday feelings? Good mental health practices, some me time. Can you think of others? And what does Andre do to manage his overwhelming feelings? Coping mechanisms, talking to a friend or an adult, and he talks to a therapist. Feelings can be difficult to admit or talk about. Let's take a moment as a class and discuss what made it hard for Andre to talk about his mental health and to ask for help. One of the biggest barriers is stigma. Stigma is a mark of shame associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person.
So, what condition do you think it was that Andre was suffering from? Depression. Andre was suffering from depression, which is a common mood disorder with specific changes in moods, thoughts, and behaviors. Depression can really happen to anyone. It's common and it's treatable. It's nothing to be ashamed of. There is hope, and you do deserve to feel better. What are some of the symptoms of depression? So, when we talk about depression, to truly have a clinical level of depression, these are symptoms that are present nearly all days, every day, for 2 or more weeks. So, we're talking about things like changes in mood, if you're feeling depressed or really irritable, decreased interest or pleasure in most of your activities, things you used to enjoy. If you have a significant weight change or a change in your appetite, some people find that they overeat when they're feeling depressed, and others find that they have no appetite. You may also experience some changes in sleep, so sleeping too much or too little. Also, changes in your perceived activity level. So, if you feel like you're sped up, like time is passing really quickly or too slow, people may even notice that your speech is a little bit slowed down. You may have a lot of fatigue or loss of energy. Negative self-perceptions are also part of depression. So feelings of worthlessness, excessive or guilt that maybe goes to a level that's not necessarily warranted, and problems thinking clearly, diminishing your ability to think, concentrate. You feel really indecisive and maybe a little bit foggy. And sometimes people with depression also feel suicidal. They may have thoughts of dying or suicide or commit acts of self harm. You may also experience some behavior changes that go along with your symptoms of depression. So, if you are suffering from depressions, you may have problems getting to school, your grades may drop, you may actually feel it in your body and have some aches and pains that are physical. You may have changes with your friends. Some people suffering from depression may run away from home, engage in reckless behavior, things that are unsafe for them. They may have a lack of attention to their appearance or hygiene, just not really caring what you look like anymore. Some people suffering depression have bursts of aggression, and others turn to using drugs or alcohol to help them cope. Depression really hurts. So, when we look at Andre's life, let's think about the ways depression affected his life. It definitely was affecting his academic life and his social life. He was withdrawing. He didn't feel like connected with his family, so it was impacting his family life. His physical activities were not as pleasing to him, and he wasn't really engaging in them in the same way he might have previously. And just his general overall everyday behavior was shifted. Can you think of any other areas that were impacted by Andre's depression?
Now that we know a little bit more about depression, we're going to talk about where you can find valid and reliable information, where you can find help and support, and how you can ask for help and support for yourself or a friend. So, if you're concerned about yourself or a friend, maybe you're feeling depressed, maybe you've had some suicidal thoughts, maybe you think your friends are depressed, it's really important that you can talk to a trusted adult, someone who is reliable and someone who is dependable. So let's talk about that. At home, who might some trusted adults be? Perhaps your caregiver, maybe you have relatives in the home, grandparents. Anybody else? What about your community? Do you attend church services? Are you part of any city sport clubs or any other community organizations? Are there any safe adults there that you might be able to talk to? What about your school? Kids spend most of their time in school, so who can you talk to at school? At all of our high schools, you can definitely talk to the social worker, your school counselor, school psychologist, and any of the teachers. We're all safe adults for you to bring your concerns to. Sometimes people can feel ashamed to ask for help, and that's due to the stigma of having a mental health disorder. So it's important to know how to ask for help. So when you're talking to a trusted adult, you want to make sure you let them know how you feel, what you've tried, and what you think that they can do to help you. For example, you can say, I've been feeling really down lately. I know there are things I can do to feel better. I've tried deep breathing. I've tried hanging out with my friends. I've tried yoga. None of it's helping. I think I might need to speak to a professional or a therapist. Can you help me find someone? And then how can you help a friend? So it's important to let your friends know that you've noticed changes in them, that you care about them, and then offer to help them. For example, I notice you've really not been focusing in class. You seem tired all the time. You seem really distant. This really isn't like you, and I care about you. I want to help you. I think maybe we should talk to your dad or your school counselor. So, being a good friend means that you showed up to listen and you care. So, where can you learn more about how to get help and about feeling depressed or suicidal? Again, you can definitely talk to your school social worker, counselor, psychologist, teacher. If you don't feel very comfortable talking to some of your school staff, other trusted adults, or you can try one of these phone numbers. There's the National Suicide Prevention Line, and you can text a crisis line. If you text LISTEN to 741-741, you will get a response. If you're in immediate crisis, dial 911. And remember, depression can happen to anybody. It's common, it's treatable, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. There is hope, and you deserve to feel better. For more information on this lesson, some activities to learn about depression, you can visit ericaslighthouse.org. You can also scan this little code here to take a short survey. Don't forget, your school counselors, social workers, psychologists, and teachers are all here to help.